I'm Jeff Pospisil, the 10-Minute Treasurer, with practical advice for improving your church's financial future. In this video, this is the third part in a five-part series on So You Want to Preach on Giving. Um, there are a lot of pastors that just don't feel comfortable or even qualified going near the subject of generosity and stewardship. And that's a shame because this is a message that will change lives and really boost the impact of your church. And so I want to help you be prepared to give that life-changing message. Like I said, this is the third part. The first part was on laying a foundation of understanding about this. The second part was on picking that one point, that one point. And then this one is on the testimony. And there's great power to the testimony. And that's why in so much advertising, you see testimonies. For example, this is from Proactive Solutions. And this before and after is basically a testimony. A lot of times they would show the video of it, but you would see and hear what life was like for this person before. And then they might touch a little bit of what using the product was actually like, and then the after, and you'll see the whole life change. And that's really the proper testimony. You want to see what life was like before, what they experienced going through it, and then how has life been different since. And the whole key to this is that you will be able to identify with the person in the before photo, and then also start imagining what it'll be like afterwards. So a good testimony does that. It helps you think about yourself and be able to relate to the problems that the person has, and then be able to imagine a better future because of this product. And then hopefully when you see the product, you could even see how you could use it or if it's affordable or whatnot. And a good testimony does all these things. Even in church, you identify with the person beforehand. You can see yourself doing what they did, and then imagining the results, how life will be changed or better because of that. And I do have to warn you, not all testimonies are equal. Some of the testimonies to watch out for would be of those famous historical figures like John Wesley here, or maybe a biblical figure like I have Moses. While they had great testimonies, what they lived extraordinary lives, but they were exceptional people living at exceptional times. And it's just hard for us to imagine ourselves in their shoes. So if you're going to bring up John Wesley or Moses or some other biblical figure, they can help underpin your point, but their testimony will not have nearly the same effectiveness as a different testimony might. Another testimony to watch out are from people who have just a culture that's completely different from what we currently experience. For example, this is the Amish near my hometown, Moore, Montana, doing haying. And yes, they are a great example for what it's like to live generous and frugal lives, but their lives are so much different. I mean, we can't imagine living life without electricity, and many of the other challenges the Amish take on. And so for us to put ourselves in their shoes, it just doesn't seem to work. So whether it's the Amish or people living in Haiti or wherever across the world, it's just hard for us to imagine what life would be like because our lives are so much different. And the last one to watch out for is when you're end up either on purpose or not on purpose, stretching the truth or making some stuff up. And a lot of times this does happen by accident, where I've been sharing a story for a while, and then eventually the details get a little bit more fantastic. And so every now and then, what I'll do is I'll run it past that person, to make sure I'm still telling the story like it should be told. And again, under no circumstances should you pass off a made up story as true either, because again, we're talking about a very sensitive subject, and you don't want to undermine your credibility on this. So, what would be some good examples of testimonies that people could relate to and be powerful and effective if you used them in a sermon? Um, This happens to be a picture of Spearfish United Methodist Church with my good friend, Pastor Scott McCurdy. And so if Scott was going to be sharing a sermon on generosity, he could definitely use his own testimony. his own journey of what it was like to grow in giving, how his own faith was affected. And some pastors might shy away from that, thinking that it's bragging or something like that. But as long as you're not dramatizing it or sanitizing it, that you're giving a pretty clear view of what it was like before as well as after, um, then that's a powerful testimony. People will be able to relate. Another might be if you have somebody in your church that you know has taken a step in giving. And this is a young man, Davis, who was their intern. And people know Davis, and they should be able to connect with his story. And so if Scott was going to share Davis's story with Davis's permission, that would also be usually pretty effective. And the other thing would be is maybe you just have Davis give his own testimony in person. Um, there are some issues with that too. The main issue ends up being you need to gauge that person's comfort level and how they want to give their testimony. The vast majority of people dislike getting up in front of a crowd to talk, period, much less share something very personal. So there are some people that it'll be fine. You can say, hey, try to get it down to about 5 minutes and give your story, and they'll do well. But they even may need to receive some kind of coaching or feedback before they get up there. The other type, and this is more common, I think now, is that you'll have an interview style where the person will get up and they'll basically have the pastor asking them questions and talking them through their story and really just walking alongside them through the whole process. And the one that's growing in popularity, and I think is probably the most appropriate one for this pandemic season, is the pre-recorded one. Let's just sit down and they could either do it solo or interview style and get it recorded down. And that way it becomes even more shareable, assuming the person's willing to have that shared, where you can put it on Facebook and many more people will be impacted by that testimony. So all these ones are great options, but again, you're going to have to work with it and think through it with the person whose testimony it is. All right, hopefully that gave you some ideas on what to do for a testimony to include it in your stewardship sermon. Again, this is a ministry of the Finance Office of the Dakotas Conference, as well as the Dakotas United Methodist Foundation. And if you enjoyed this and found it beneficial, I encourage you to like, subscribe, or share. All right, God bless you.